hated him playing, but this is something that he is very, very popular, that he really, really enjoys. A 15-6 record overall in his career on this pick. So he is very, very good on it, was obviously very prevalent on it when he was back on teams like Suning, which he did pretty well on back in the day.
You can see a little bit of focus down towards the bottom sides now, specifically the bot laners, right? We haven't seen either of these bot lanes be picked through. And the Kalista, very strong at the moment, wins out in lanes, and I think that's what LGD would like for themselves, right? Azir usually goes pretty neutral into lanes, especially into that Taliyah. Same sort of thing with the Rumble, where into the Sion, again, your lane's been neutralized out. If you want somewhere to go ganks, want somewhere to go and be aggressive in, you kind of need your bot lane to be strong at the moment. Things that have been dominating in the bot lane have been the Kalista, the Draven, and the Kai'Sa. Not sure that this is a full Kai'Sa angle here for LGD, but it is certainly possible.
You already have enough like long range, just like deep, like DPS. You could go for maybe a little bit of an assassination threat with Xiaoya on the Kai'Sa, but still a lot of different options on the table for LGD, as they still need to pick a bot lane, as do EDG. We'll say On has kind of opted more towards more utility-oriented champions. Things like the Jhin have been really popular for him specifically. Should be a difference in playstyle if the Lucian does get locked in, and it will. So
is it the Lucian Nami slam?
We'll see. I mean, that's become very, very popular in competitive play, specifically the LCK. Even in the LPL, we've seen, I think, Jackie Love play the Lucian Nami, and we're kind of
more and more recently. I think specifically NIP, Leave has been popping off on it. He had one performance where he ended up with 14 kills in about 12 minutes early on. It works well as a combo, and to be honest, with this composition, you've got enough in front of you to be able to try play it through. Caitlyn, that's a little bit different right here. I was wondering with this sort of beginnings of a wombo composition, if they wanted to go towards something like the MF, instead wanting a little bit more range, you can sit further back alongside the Azir and very much allow your Skarner to step up, and it is just going to be the heavy poke bot lane. This is the thing, right? The Lucian Nami, very strong in that individual lane. I wonder now if you want to pivot instead into something like the Lucian Braum. You could use a little bit more tankiness potentially, but you do then lose out on a little bit of that extra oomph from the Lucian.
We've seen Milio also be pairing alongside the Lucian as something that can maybe be a little bit more powerful in the mid to late game. The Nami very much phase in particular, as it gets locked in here for Wink, so that's going to be the name of the game. You know, Blockster, time ends up just being a flat circle. You know, we have our engaged supports, you know, for all of this year, and now we're just back to 2023, where it was just picking Lucian Nami into Caitlyn Karma into just like this the standard bot lanes over and over again.
Yeah, and this is very different, right? In that the bot lanes are incredibly aggressive, but back and forth. You usually look at both of these bot lanes and go, oh yeah, that's a lane bully. You win out in the laning phase with this bot lane. Well, into each other, you're in a bit of an interesting spot. LGD should be able to get the poke established. You are in a much better matchup because of the range. But if you ever step a little bit too far forwards and get hit by a bubble, you can get instantly jumped by the Lucian and pretty much popped in this situation. Even those early lever Karma shields still aren't necessarily going to be enough. So you really need to be careful to play at your range here as LGD and not get too close.
And a lot of what EDG's composition is right now has to be around that Lucian Nami. If they can get ahead, if On and Winx can find themselves a lead, that will transition into a very good mid game where they can dominate these mid waves, play around to this, you know, Xin Zhao in the jungle for Zhao Hao, and that's where EDG I think are going to want to try to play this game, where as we get later on into things, and once that Lucian damage maybe starts to fall off a little bit, that's when LGD's composition really starts to shine, where you have that Wombo combo. You have all of these big team fighting ultimates that can come together and really take over a late game team fight. So I feel like that's what we're looking at here for EDG. Making sure the bot lane gets a little bit ahead, and then trying to dominate that mid game with this Taliyah, with these semi-globals. And again, the stakes of this matchup here in Group Nirvana higher than ever. While both of these teams most likely will not have the risk of having their season end, EDG still technically needs at least one more to make sure they avoid that fate, whereas LGD with a win here can lock themselves a spot in the top 2 in the LPL play-in stage. Try to get into that top 8 for the playoffs. We're on to the race for game number 1 of our series between LGD and EDG.
We've already potentially got a little bit of shenanigans right here. Wink very much going to spot this one out. Nobody's gonna die. a little early look right here for LGD. And I think it's very interesting, right, that the composition out of LGD is far more focused around these team fights, around being able to land this top jungle mid lane combo. Hang on, don't do that. Okay, he just chucks a Warden, isn't gonna get killed. I was so worried he was about to step straight up. No, all good, all good. Because LGD, we've been talking about how they very much like to beat you in the laning phase. Nayu has been great on the ganks early on, and to be honest with this Skarner, he can make that work too. They're also going to have to be careful. This is a lot of early posturing out of both of these teams. Not really sure that it's going to turn into anything too much. It'll just be interesting to see if Xiao is going to stick around and steal away the entirety of these bottom lane camps. I like this decision here out of EDG.
What is this? We're not in split one anymore. We got a Scion leashing around the jungle. Okay, I guess so. It's gonna create probably a vertical jungle situation.
Yes, exactly.
But now the thing is here, Bloxer, we're still in that mid-season patch. No matter how hard you try, those lane swaps aren't coming back necessarily. So you're gonna potentially have that debuff if ZDZ gets too close to the bot lane here. So not really a threat of a dive, I believe. Really just an opportunity to try to take away some camps here for Xiaohao instead of a vertical side of the map that On and Wing can really play off of. And as I say that, ZDZ taking a bit of a beating here from Xiaoya and YCX. The problem is, though, is that they're not actually getting any of this CS. And now Xiaohao, who's level 3, already forcing YCX to half HP. They're gonna go for the dive. They say lane swaps be damned. They're going for it anyway. ZDZ just gonna int here for first blood to go over to LGD, but they're gonna be able to trade it right back. A 1-for-1, plus they burn Sasa's teleport as he goes down here. I say that's very worth it for EDG.
Yeah, I think if Sasa is actually able to just stay top lane, hold his nerve, not join this play down in the bottom side, it's absolutely fine. You might even be able to pick yourself up that initial plate, and Xiaoya was going to be dead anyway. Instead, you get that teleport out, you lose out onto a couple of flashes, you lose out onto some people's lives as well. Genuinely crazy, and I really like this out of EDG, because which other lane were you even going to be looking at? Which other lane were you potentially even going to be trying to play around? You very much want to be getting this Lucian Nami ahead. If falling behind would be devastating for your chances of a victory. And so yeah, give yourself that vertical jungling, give yourself that extra priority around the bottom side, and make the lives of this Caitlyn and Karma hell.
And now that Sasa had to already teleport down to the bottom lane, they can't, you know, go back to the even laning phases. They have to now keep Sasa down there and really just take a beating to this Lucian Nami in a 1v2 situation. The Aqua Prison already lands down onto him. He's going to try to fight back a little bit here with the Empowered Flame Spitter, but is taking a lot of damage down here in the 2v1. And so On and Wink are going to be able to get away from this Caitlyn Karma lane, which has so much poke, and now potentially look for another dive here onto Sasa. They're going to try to do some damage here. On almost has enough as Wink takes another tower shot, but now here's Xiaohao once again. This Rumble's not having a good time whatsoever. The audacious charge comes through, and EDG go 2-for-1, and Xiaohao will survive.
That's really impressive early game right here from EDG. They know which lane they have to get ahead. The fact that the kills are going down onto Xiaohao, not necessarily ideal, but getting ahead Yo Xinjiao, not the end of the world. This bot lane just going to be looking better and better. And the thing is, right, yeah, you've now managed to pick yourself up a kill onto Xiaoya. But the Caitlyn Karma wants to be pushing in lane, wants to be playing with that range and bullying out this Lucian army. That's why you pick it into the Lucian the second that you see it. Bullying around a Scion? The Scion doesn't care. The Scion literally couldn't care less that you are pushing him about, whereas the Rumble wants an even laning phase, wants to be in a decent spot coming out of the laning phase, because otherwise all of that damage that this champion can lay down just won't be available.
Very, very fun situation here that has been set up in this game. You know, sometimes in Group Nirvana, you know, as our broadcast kind of unfolds, we get these, you know, assignments, and we're like, oh man, we got a Group Nirvana game, but this has been awesome so far. And now Sasa's got to have to try to find some sort of trade, not in that 2v1 situation. He goes for a play onto Angel, forcing him to get a flash out. And now, that with Angel not here, it's a little bit of a win back for LGD, but I think overall EDG very happy with where this game state is. The problem is that ZDZ is not getting a lot of farm, but he's soaking up XP. He's doing all right, and most importantly, Xiaoya and YCX haven't really picked up any plates just yet. We'll see if that ends up becoming a difference here as they finally get a big wave under the tower.
Plate's gonna go over. It's at least something right here, but this game already gone a little bit on its head for LGD. Luckily for them, they are very much going to be focused on playing out these team fights, trying to get those synergies between the Impale, Adanayu, and all of the other ultis available on the map. It's not the end of the world, and they're going to get that first push over towards these Grubs. Honestly, getting Grubs onto a composition that has a Caitlyn always going to be nice too. So it's not the end of the world, right? LGD haven't fallen massively far behind. I think the gold... Wow, just one tap. Okay, never mind. I didn't think the ZDZ was just going to go down there, but, you know, clearly wrong. And this is the thing. Yes, the Sion doesn't really care about being put behind, but you are still putting extra power into a Caitlyn.
Yeah, so now Xiaoya is in a pretty good position, and you know, ZDZ really hasn't been able to do too much this game, and that's you know what EDG have opted into wanting to do, but you know, do feel a little bit bad for the Sion right here. Now we are getting a bit of a tower race here that EDG should be able to win. Sasa has joined his team around here. Remember, now that we've reached this point in the game, the 7-minute mark, there is no more potential threat of, you know, that lane swap bug from coming through. But now, with Nayo actually joining, I think LGD might be able to get this first tower. So. The problem is the wave is about to go down here, but it's not going to matter. So first tower will go over to LGD. They actually win out on things by having more people on that top side of the map.
And the Caitlyn already does a little bit of tower damage, despite the fact that it's very early on into the game. And EDG, they initiate this swap, and they've made it work for themselves in that they get a couple of kills right here onto Xiaohao. But they haven't really been able to push that any further forwards. Now you've got these towers down, you can swap your bot lanes back around, hopefully get these bot lanes to maul the next set of towers. I gotta be honest though, I'm kind of preferring this right here for LGD. One of the things that Caitlyn runs into is you really need to get her accelerated into the game for her to really start to be able to dome people, to be able to deal that damage. Feeding her 10 full turret plates, if they're able to play this one out effectively and she can get the top lane and bot lane tower, is a great way to set up a Caitlyn. Especially
when the whole point of that lane swap was to try and make the Caitlyn a little bit weaker down there in the bottom lane, get On and Wink a bit ahead. Fortunately, has not fully worked out for them, as you can see. On actually down a little bit just in terms of gold to Xiaoya, who's able to pick up, you know, obviously that first turret, as well as getting a lot of farm. Just those 2 kills, most importantly. And so, for LGD, they feel pretty comfortable about where things are at. Remember, they have that Wombo combo team comp with the Rumble, the Skarner, and the Azir. If you add that high damage Caitlyn that is getting ahead as we speak, that's a pretty good recipe for success for LGD.
Absolutely, especially the Caitlyn alongside the Karma with that extra poke around these objectives, the ability to wall people off with those traps as well. See a little bit of aggression right here onto this blue buff. Now you attempting to steal this one away, but Xiaohao is here and also very strong at the moment. Doesn't manage to get the smite away though, and that's going to be a pretty big steal here for LGD. They are using their priority that they've got in these lanes incredibly effectively so far. Going to swap people about again. We're going to see the mid laners head down to the bottom side. We've got a minute until the next set of grubs spawn. A minute and 30 until the next dragon is up and available. Right now you're indexing very much just into the middle of the map for these bot lanes. It keeps you in a good spot to be able to head for either of these objectives, whichever one you feel is going to be more important. And I gotta be honest, getting all 6 grubs here for LGD would be huge.
And there's a consequence of, you know, the map being split towards the top side in favor of LGD. If they were able to get 3 of those grubs, and having 6 grubs on a Caitlyn is going to definitely feel good. So I feel like LGD want to maybe focus their attention towards the top side of the map, especially if it means you get a kill here on his EDZ. He has to use the Unstoppable Onslaught, but it gets blocked up. They don't even have to use the Impale. They can just pick up the Feats of Warfare and take ZDZ down for the 3rd time. It's a bad time to be the Rumble here in this game.
I mean, really unfortunate for ZDZ. Yes, the Sion won't care eventually, but the current Sion sat on 30 CS at 10 minutes. Who at that point had some boots and a ruby crystal. You're incredibly squishy, especially in the face of a Skarner who at that point had the majority of components towards that first item already in the back pocket. And something else that's not ideal, right? You're having to go towards that Spectre's cowl.
Taking a lot of damage. Actually gets the ace in the hole blocked by Wink. And so a little bit of aggressive play here for On and Wink to try to get some mid lane priority. Won't result in too much happening, but now Xiaohao jumps over the wall into the grub pit. Not going to be able to pick that first one up, so it is at least the advantage going over to LGD. Xiaohao should at least be able to get one to make sure not all 6 grubs go over to LGD, but now a full fight could potentially begin. YCX to flash away here from the Unraveled Earth. Now, everybody kind of on the retreat. Xiaohao still has his smite to potentially take this grub away, and will make it a 2-for-1 on this set of things, but overall, LGD controlling that area 4-2.
Yeah, the fact that you managed to get 4 of them really nice in this situation. We said it's great with the Caitlyn, but it's also... Okay, a little bit of aggression potentially. Tidal Wave having to come out of Wink right there to dissuade anymore. Arn taking so much damage.
Yeah.
Taking away the 3-4 grubs from a Scion too, who can be so effective in a side lane. Same thing with the Talia. Both of those champions can roam about to these fights so quickly. It means they can sit in the side lane, use grubs. Just well played overall from LGD. Now they're going to turn this one around into a Drake. Nothing that you can do here as EDG to stop this one. So throughout the early game, despite the fact that EDG initiate the shenanigans, it's still going to be LGD coming out on top. Small gold lead and more of the objectives to them.
And you know what, I respect it, right? You're EDG. You know that even if we lose this game, we still have another chance against RNG to try to get ourselves a spot in that top 2. And maybe they think LGD is just this pure unstoppable team. They're 3-0. They have not dropped a series so far in the Nirvana stage. And so why not go for something a little bit more creative that could potentially get your Lucianami further ahead, that could get Xiaohao in a good position. So I respect what they have been able to do in terms of attempting to go for these plays, but looks like LGD had the right response for it, and that is a very good sign for a team like this to, even when they're thrown unique situations at them, they're able to adjust, they're able to accommodate, and now they're up about 500 gold, and they have the advantages in the grub department and are even on the dragons. So overall, I'm feeling very good about where this game is at.
Absolutely, and with first item now completed pretty much across the board right here for LGD, they're in a good spot to be able to initiate fights if they want them. Wink gonna get caught here.
He's so far forward here. It's a flash away from the Impale of Nayo. So nicely done there by the Skarner, who punishes Wink for trying to clear away some of that vision in the bottom side of river. So another Summoner Spell burn. Not much to fight for over the map just yet for the next couple of minutes, but that cooldown always can be a little bit good for trying to find opportunities. Speaking of opportunities, looks like EDG might have found one here onto Sasa. Already used the equalizer, but it's not going to be enough to try and take down either of Xiaohao or ZDZ in a 1v2. So the Jin Zhao picks up his 3rd kill of the game, and is clearly the most fed person here on EDG.
Absolutely, it's a very strong look so far for Xiaohao, but the rest of the team kind of falling behind, right? He's up 1,000 gold, everybody else is down by around about 500. It's meaning there's a small gold lead here for LGD. It's been expanding slowly. It's very much going to be here on Xiaohao to be able to pull the rest of his team through. Right now, grabbing a ton of turret plates here in this top lane is going to be effective. They might be able to actually burst this tower fully down. There is a push going on in the bottom lane. There's a small push going on in the mid lane. So it might be traded back right here for LGD, but still, EDG at least showing they are still fighting in this one, finding ways to get involved. And to be honest, having a fed Jin Zhao not the end of the world. It just worries me in a game where you've got a Lucian army, because this is a bot lane that is designed to win in its lane, get really far ahead during the early 10 minutes of the game, and then just exert your will on the rest of the team.
I'm curious to see what that can potentially look like, especially now that, you know, On and Wink haven't really gotten off to that big lead that they were maybe hoping to, with all the goals going to Xiaohao so far in the early parts of this one. Can they still dominate the mid lane? Can they still control waves with the culling? Against Xiaoya and YCX, only time will tell, obviously, but you know, I like the creativity still from EDG. They're still looking for opportunities to be creative, to try to win in these unorthodox ways, and it's a little bit different than what we've seen in some of our other, you know, Nirvana games. You know, remember the start of the season when we saw LNG against EDG? That was the most boring series of all time. Now EDG's the one being creative here. They're the ones pushing the initiative.
Yeah, unfortunately, every single time that LNG EDG have played, it has turned into an absolute snooze fest. This one, much more exciting. Flash is going to have to come out from YCX. Oh boy. He was so close to getting caught right there, even with the flash, and that would have been one dead Karma. Instead, you're just going to lose out onto that Summoner Spell. Not exactly the worst Summoner Spell to lose right here for LGD. It would have been much worse if Xiaoya had have also had to flash.
We love these proactive plays here for EDG. The problem is, slowly but surely, they're not really turning into kills. You got a Summoner Spell here, Summoner Spell there, maybe one kill onto the Rumble here or there too, but The leads haven't really fully been generated just yet. And now LGD stacking 5 members here in the mid lane to try to burst some damage onto this tier 1 tower. Already the culling has been used from On. And everybody on LGD still full HP. The redemption from YCX doing a ton to keep everyone nice and healthy and can make sure they can go for another play on this mid lane right before the dragon spawns in 45.
Dragon in 45, we've got the Herald spawning right now as well, so lots of objectives to go fight for. Isn't it ideal to have lost out onto the culling? At least you do get that redemption out, but like you said, everybody right here from LGG, nice and healthy. Push does get dominated here by EDG. They are now going to get the fast track up into the river towards this Rift Herald. 20 seconds now until the Drake is going to be spawning, and with all 5 members of EDG sat here in this topside river, I'd be very surprised if LGD decide to push their way into this one. Instead, it makes a lot more sense for them to be able to re-establish mid lane control and then move down towards the bottom lane.
They take On down pretty low. Equalizer on top.
Wow.
So much long-range damage on Lucian, who, again, does not have that ultimate. Only has the flash available. Here comes the Tidal Wave and the Weaver's Wall. And EDG going for the full engage. Decimating Smash lands onto 2. Sauce at full HP. Xiaoya relatively low, but he's far enough away from the rest of the team to make sure that there's no additional follow-up damage that can come through from EDG. So no blood is shed, but the tower in the mid lane does not fall for LGD. And now the Rift Herald is spawned in the mid lane. Now going into that bot lane tower. Not going to be enough to take it fully down just yet. And will LGD want to go back for another play? Looks like they will. Nio dashing in, forcing the flash away from ZDZ. And it just will be the tower going down in the mid lane for Edward Gaming.
Oh, really unfortunate that LGD's tower just about falls for them. They're desperately trying to defend it right there. Nio, though, just stepping up, forces the flashes away. The Impale right there would have been massive. This is the thing, right? LGD's composition, it's got a really nice blend of non-committal damage and hard engage that they can go and play around. It's forcing EDG to be very respectful, step quite far back, but then again, the full engage out of EDG's composition works very well too. The Weaver's Wall alongside that unstoppable onslaught is always going to be a terrifying combo. Right now, LGD, they've got themselves that priority around the river, the Mountain Drake very much within their sights, but EDG keep forcing through the mid lane, and it's keeping LGD honest.
A little cheeky dash forward. He's playing a little bit on the margins here for EDG, as LGD know that they can't really control mid right now. They don't have a lot of those ultimates available. The Equalizer soon to come off of cooldown, but not there just yet. Still no kills in this extended exchange in the mid lane. And by the way, the Dragon also still available. Will be the second for either team, as it is a Mountain Soul across the Rift. EDG now in the pit first. Culling comes out immediately onto YCX. Not going to do a ton of damage to put anybody at any lethal threat. The battle lines have been drawn here around the Mountain Drake. Zhao Hao in the area to start things off. He has the first priority around the pit. Nio already using the X-Styles impact. Not able to get into the pit just yet. Now he starts to approach. Weaver's Wall comes out. It's going to separate the bot lane from the rest of the team. And Io immediately goes down, but Sasa in the back line will take down On. Shut the Lucian down. He will go down in a trade, and it's a 4v3 across the map. Zhao has the smite advantage. Will be able to take away this dragon, and that will be secured here by EDG. But already ZDZ has fallen down, and Xiaoya still at full HP, using the 90 caliber net to try to escape. The Wimpy comes lightning comes through from Zhao. They're going to finally try to take the Caitlyn down. 3 talent strike. Plus another W is there, but Angel starts to come online. But Angel, with a huge seismic shove, gets himself a double kill and wins the fight for Edward Gaming.
Angel and Zhao Hao right there were playing out of their dang minds. The Weaver's Wall to kick things off completely splits the fight and leaves Nio dead right at the very beginning. The second that Nio goes in, you can see just on the top of your screen, Angel has walked up to just throw this Weaver's Wall straight through the middle, and it completely catches the Skarner out. The second that he's dead, this fight is already on the downhill, and it's only through Xiaoya playing as well as he possibly could here on the Caitlyn that things are even slightly playable. Still, you lose the Dragon, and it's going to be an ace right here for EDG. This is what we were talking about, right? Yeah, their laning phase hasn't exactly been the most impressive, but by God, can this team play a fight.
And that's the team fighting that we know EDG can really execute well, as just a amazing fight from Angel on this Taliyah. This is one of his most played, most popular, most successful champions of this player's career. Again, this is a guy that, even though he's on a team right now that is in the group Nirvana, Angel has been to the World's Finals at some point as well back in the day. So definitely a successful player on some of these team fighting mages. And on this Taliyah pick, he knows exactly what he's doing and sets EDG up perfectly for that 5-man ace and the second dragon of the game.
This is the problem, right, for LGD. If you don't get your combos off, if you don't manage to get that Impale into Equalizer combo, if you don't get that Shuffle into Impale into Equalizer combo, any of those working out for you, then that's so much of your overall team damage just gone. That was a good Equalizer from Sasa during the middle of that team fight. Went across multiple members, but at the exact same moment, Nio is getting eliminated. Great seismic shove that just pulls him into the team, gets one tapped, and from that moment on, the team fight is as good as won. 5-0-3 right now for Xiao Hao, 2-0-3 for Angel. Already got that Seraphs completed, so also got some extra survivability, some good damage as well. Overall, just going to be hitting like a truck at this point. Very rare to have a composition that includes a Lucian army where they're not the stars of the show, but so far it's very much just been Wink with these ultis, the main contributing factor for the success of EDG.
Well, now that On was able to get a couple of kills, or at least, you know, pick up some assists in this game.
Yeah.
This is where EDG's composition truly shines at this point. Rapid fire cannon picked up for On.
Yeah.
Working towards that next third crit item. That'll be another big spike for him. But even right now, controlling that mid lane is going to be very easy for EDG. When you play with this Lucian Nami, that's exactly the name of the game. When you have Angel on the side lane with a semi-global ultimate on the Talia, becomes even easier to try and accomplish this here. So LGD, at this point, need to kind of stack up as 5 and try to force down one side of the map if they want to try to have something happen and go in their way. The Otacon might be the focus. A bit of a death brush, though, here.
Death brush? Oh, Wink just used the bubble.
He's on the face check. He's tanky, but is he tanky enough?
No.
Looks like he will get taken down very easily by XQW. So, well executed play by LGD. They know that they cannot fight right now in a full 5v5, so they find a pick, and now we'll go over to the Otacon.
There's the other thing you can do with this composition. Picks are going to be relatively easy. Didn't even really need to use any of the big ultis in that one. More than enough to just have your Scion walk straight into the brush. It obviously would have been worse right here for EDG if any of their main carries had have stepped up, but still, losing out the Atachan right here, all of those petals going over. The trade is going to be a mid lane tier 2 tower. That's something back for them. It means that the gold right now is still going to be a 3k advantage for EDG, but LGD, they're very much not rolling over and letting this game happen to them. They're still making proactive plays, and actually we've spent so long looking around this fight after the first Drake goes down to the next one spawning here in just 30 seconds time.
Yeah, it's been a very busy game. Even though blocks of the kills don't really look very, you know, explosive or anything, it's been a very back and forth, each team kind of playing this chessboard across the map. One team makes a play here in the bot lane, then EDG respond in the mid lane, and you know, we keep going back and forth with these moves. All of a sudden, another major objective back on the map, as you say, and we'll see what both of these teams want to do here in this situation. Again, for LGD, they're still down a little bit in gold, but they have now started to get a couple of these big major items. All of the top side at 2 full items or more, and Xiaoya working towards that third as well. The Infinity Edge not there just yet, but it'll still be very powerful as this dragon gets started up.
Yeah, On does have those 3 items completed, so is going to be hitting so hard. But once again, where is the Weaver's Wall going to be? Can you split the team fight up? So far, Angel, he's looking for it, you can see, but he's taking quite a lot of damage for his positioning.
They're still looking potentially to just try to finish off the dragon. Here comes the unstoppable onslaught. Nio tries to push Xiaoho away, using the Impale to try to get the Xin Zhao out of the fight.
Oh, again!
But Nio taking too much damage,
Wait.
and Xiaoho's in!
Oh!
But the smite is secured by LGD. They pick up their second dragon of the game, and now EDG are on the run. Everybody at half HP or lower. And XQW try to chase them down with the Sand Soldiers, but will not find a single kill. So LGD able to get the second Drake, but not any kills in response.
This is fine though. They're going to be able to extend this game for at least another 5 minutes now. 2 dragons apiece for these teams. Exactly what LGD want to do. They want to get themselves into the later stages of this game. Once this Caitlyn can be one-shotting people. Once XQW can be just annihilating people with this Azir. I really thought that we were going to see the exact same thing once again. Nio had gone in too far, was just going to get killed, but a clutch redemption and shields coming through from YCX keeps his team in it, makes sure that the jungler's able to be alive, get that smite away, and they're going to live to fight another day because the Baron is now up and available.
It's still very close, even though that dragon was picked up here by LGD. Even though they're still down about 3,000 gold, you can see this team fight just itching to try and really break out. If anybody, you know, wins that big 5v5 has really been broken open. Even that ace that EDG got was a 5v3. That can really be the difference maker here. As Sasa once again getting caught out potentially. Xiao Hao landing that 3-talent strike. And so that is going to be a pick here for EDG on the bottom side of the map. 4v5 across the map. Not going to be able to get anything in response to it. The Baron is just too far away.
Yeah, the fact that you see your opponent's jungler down on the bottom side but aren't able to turn it into a tower, into a Baron, into a push in the top lane or anything, it's pretty much a free pick right there for EDG. And this could well be a turn towards the Baron for EDG. If they want to threaten onto this one, 20 seconds until Sasa's going to be back available. He does have the TP, and things are just going to calm down. Just going to be a pick, nothing too much more coming through onto that one. Not exactly the ideal. I think part of the issue that EDG currently are running into is that they've got 4 very strong members, but their tanky frontline Scion really isn't actually that strong. You can see the Unending, the Hollow, very strong if you're specifically worried about Saci and XQW, but Shio can just sort of one-tap him at the moment, can get through the health bar of the Scion incredibly quickly, and that's meaning the ZDZ isn't able to play like Scions often do, where they can just step up, not worry about the damage being put down, and play very aggressively, buy a lot of space for everyone else.
Yeah, we saw that even around, around that bottom side when ZDZ got picked off, and now a lot of long-range poke comes down, and oh, no. We got to pause, ladies and gentlemen. Right as the equalizer comes down, right as XQW dashes in.
That's the.
I don't know. I don't know what's about to happen here. We're gonna have some explaining to be done by our staff as we.
Somebody just pressed an ability and it did not happen. Surely, right? You go impale and it didn't happen, and you're like, hey, bug, right? Surely. We'll see what happens. Hopefully, it's just a little bit of player error, and this is going to be very quick. Or somebody's headset has disconnected. Keyboard has decided to stop working. You can see a couple of the refs currently crowding around the EDG side of things. Obviously, we don't know what has happened here.
Bloxer, I was so excited to get to start to call another team fight. LGD looked like that was really going to be their opportunity.
A great fight for them. It's the sort of situation right there where you have to body block for your Lucian. You cannot afford to allow your Lucian to get hit by that damage. But at the same time, you've pretty much, in this situation, just left Wink out to dry, right? He's about to take that Caitlyn ulti to the dome. He is currently being chased by Nayo on this Skarner. Very close to being killed, and pause. Now we don't know what happens.
I always love the pauses, like, right before a team fight unfolds. Well, I don't love it, but I think it's very funny when it happens, and we just saw it happen right here. EDG in a little bit of trouble, I'm not going to lie, and I think a lot of it comes down to On maybe being a little bit too aggressive with where he wants to place some of these cullings. And now it results in him taking a bunch of poke, and that's the strength of this LGD team composition here, Blocks. We didn't talk about it a ton in the draft, but finishing their composition off with this Caitlyn Karma lane, it added this level of poke, and it could be built upon a little bit by both the Azir for XQW, as well as that Rumble Equalizer, which we saw used to tremendous effect right there. And now it's a situation where we're in this pause, where EDG are all like half HP running away, everybody in LGD is chasing them in, and it just is that, it's that meme where it's the to be continued, because that's what we're waiting on right now, to see what happens, to see the grand conclusion.
This is a going to an advert break, right as the big ultimate's about to come down, right as that big fight is about to start. Or, massive cliffhanger, see you next season, next season's in 3 years' time. Hopefully it's not going to be a 3-year pause right here, but all of that hype does get cut right off. Hopefully we are just going to be able to jump back into this one relatively soon. We're not going to have to pause for too long. Still, it's a very interesting point in the game to pause. The big fight about to happen notwithstanding, the fact that you've got 2-2 on the Drakes, the fact that there's a Baron up and available to be played around, the fact that in the early game EDG look good, then mid game LGD come back, EDG, they know how to team fight, but their composition not particularly easy to execute, and we're seeing it here. It's very reliant on those big Weaver's Walls coming through from Angel. He finds a great one in the first team fight, doesn't find a great one in the second team fight, and it is tricky on the Taliyah, right? Because you want to be around at the beginning of these fights to lay down all of the poke that Taliyah has available to you, but if you're right there in the team fight, your Weaver's Wall isn't going to be anywhere near as effective.
Man, it is such a awkward situation to be in right now for both of these teams. I'm sure they're all really tensed up. Again, we still don't really fully know what the pause is. I've been trying to look at all the player cams to see if anyone's talking with the referee. I don't think I noticed one quite yet, although we were having our conversation about the game as well. Looks like LGD seems pretty locked in, so I wonder if this is something on EDG's side that they are trying to fix up and work through.
We can work it out by who they don't show. They usually don't show the player who's got the ref stood around them. Yeah, so it's process of elimination that we're going to have to play right here. And just looking in the side of the cams, they do show who's got quite a lot of refs currently crowded around them. And these pauses always kind of suck, right? Because I'm not sure right here for the LPL what the ruling is, but I know at least on the LEC a few years ago, you're not allowed to talk during pauses, so you're just sat there. A team fight's just about to happen, and you're not allowed to talk to your teammates, you're just sat there with your thoughts. Really tough on the mental.
Very, very stressful situation, especially at a breaking point in this game. And also, again, in Group Nirvana, where the stakes are just a little bit higher. Unlike Group Ascend, which we'll be getting to on our next series, BLG versus Weibo, you want to make sure you stick around for that one after this one. But those guys get 18 best of threes in the regular season of this split.
Yeah.
These guys get 5. It's a very different amount of games, and so the fact that this is one of the few stage games that they have left before their potential fate has been decided, whether their split just ends, do they go into the play-in stage, does their entire year end if you're EDG and you don't close things out the right way here in this group stage, a lot of things could potentially still go wrong for some of these squads. Even LGD, their spot up in that top 2 of Nirvana, not fully clinched out yet, and so the high stakes levels of the situation combined with the fact that this game is very close and game number 1, obviously a very important part of this series.
I mean, the schedule. Whoever came up with the schedule for the LPL, genuinely nuts, because you can look at different teams and try to think about how they have played out their entire year, right? You could look at a team here like an EDG, or even, I think, more emblematic, an OMG, who during Split 1, they play 3 best of 5s, win one of them versus Ultra Prime, lose the other 2. Then their first split is over. They go sit for a month or so. Then they come back in, they play 6 best of 1s, lose all of them, play 5 best of 3s, potentially lose all of them, and then you are literally done for the entire rest of the year until end of January, start of February. That is insane. That is a truly insane way to play. Or you can look at somebody else, like a Top Esports, who plays 5 best of 3s during the regular split, then plays 3 best of 5s during the regular split, another 5 best of 5s during the playoffs, goes to an international tournament, comes back 10 minutes later, plays 6 best of 1s, then plays 18 best of 3s, then gets a short break, hopefully, where they don't have to play in the play-ins and can just go straight to the playoffs, then plays as many best of 5s as they're able to do, and if you're Top Esports, you're hoping you then go straight to MSI, straight back to the next group Nirvana. The amount of games you can play is so wildly variant, and the amount of different styles and formats you're playing, best of 5s, best of 1s, best of 3s, it's all over the shop for these teams.
And it's great for the fans, right? You get to see so many games of your favorite teams because, you know, the most popular teams normally the ones that do a little bit better. But again, when you look at the other side of the coin, is these teams down here in Group Nirvana, they were not successful in the placement stages of split number 2. I think both of these teams ended up in, you know, situations where they were towards the bottom of their groups. Obviously, lost out on some pretty bad best of 3s if you're LGD, to now be in a situation where you get a lot less playing time and a lot less stage time, and now have your season potentially at risk at any moment's notice. And so that is obviously going to be a little bit of a higher stress situation. Now that you do get that opportunity on the stage. Now we have received word, as you can see on the bottom of your screen on the Huya feed. I think the issue is something with Wink's champion that they are currently investigating to see if any possible chrono break or anything has to be put into place. As soon as we find out more information, we obviously will let you know.
Not ideal. We were very much hoping that it was a keyboard go bork that would have been a nice, easy fix. Unfortunately, it's going to be a champion issue, so hopefully we'll be able to get that one resolved as quickly as possible. Still, though, you know, it could be worse. It could be a massive team fight where a complete bug happens, and then they're investigating whether or not the bug went down for the next 20 minutes. I feel like this one champion was a little bit weird. I'm not surprised that Wink paused in that situation, because it did look a little bit odd when he was running away and kind of just got immediately left behind, didn't pop an ulti, didn't really use a bubble or anything. I'm not sure what the problem was, of course, but he was very much in danger, right? If they unpause and don't change anything, if we don't get a chrono break, Wink is pretty much dead right as a Baron is up and available.
And right when those dragons are... The dragon on the bottom side is about to spawn as well. That'll be soul point for whoever can pick that one up. A lot of things that can go right for whoever has the advantage over the map. And right now, it looks like it's LGD in that situation. Again, just to refresh you guys, if you have stepped away for a little bit, what ended up happening was that EDG were pushing very far forward down the mid lane. And then the counter punch started to happen for LGD. They got a really nice equalizer out up on the top side from Sasa on the Rumble. And then all of a sudden, things paused, and it looks like Wink is the reason why. So we're still waiting to see why exactly that has become the issue. We're still potentially waiting if a chrono break is going to come through or not. We don't know. We are simply speculating, as we only have the Huya feed at our disposal. Again, a community broadcast here on LPL English, and so we kind of know just as much as you guys at this point.
Yeah. Anybody better at more languages than we are has slightly more information, as we unfortunately cannot read that text down at the bottom of the screen. It's such an interesting time to pause. Obviously, it always happens. A pause happens midway through a team fight or just after them, because that's when things are going to go wrong that people will notice. But it's always funny, right? Just as the build-up starts, you were just getting ready to ramp up to start talking about this team fight, and immediately gets cut off. Nope, not allowed to.
It was about to really break open potentially. If EDG were able to escape from that initial play, that's a lot of cooldowns that were used by LGD. It probably means at least they get a dragon, but probably not much more after that. All we can say, though, is that even though EDG had themselves a pretty big gold lead after winning that initial fight around the second dragon, all of a sudden LGD look better and better over these last couple of engages, and maybe that scaling is starting to come into play a little bit here. Remember, we talked about the Azir, the Skarner, the Rumble being this big wombo combo competition. Yeah, I mean, it's tough, and again, we're still waiting to see what exactly is going to happen, but we'll get there eventually. We'll get there eventually, right, Blockster? So, yeah, time will tell.
So, how was your week?
It was all right. Well, the week just started, so we're chilling.
True. Hasn't gone wrong already. That's good.
The fact that we're here on LPL English, obviously I'm on the East Coast of North America, whereas you are like able to wake up in the morning, you know, have yourself a little breakfast, get ready. I've been up since like noon the previous day, so
ouch.
We're gonna close 24 hours, I think, by the time we wrap up this show. But we do it for the love of the game.
Especially with the tech pause.
Yeah, the tech pause isn't helping. Hey, you know, Mizell and Cubby, they've been getting a lot of these pauses together.
Yes.
So I'm glad to know that it's not just them that are in this current situation, right? So now that we are suffering, we're suffering from the pause as well. Which I'm sure Cubby, actually, you know, Cubby was supposed to be on this show.
Cubby was
going in.
That was so what I was just about to say. This is supposed to be Cubby. I was accidentally awake too late last night to see the message from Cubby that said, anybody about? I am indeed about, here I am, but clearly this is a Cubby curse, right? It's not Mizell, it's not his fault. This is what happens to Cubby. He gets given group Nirvana games that have tech pauses midway through. Free Cubby.
Yeah, Cubby's here in spirit. His spirit is watching down on us, like issuing a pause in a group Nirvana game to make sure his presence is still known here today. As
it has been genuine joy of mine watching the group Nirvana games that Cubby covers and watching him slowly lose his mind as worse and worse League of Legends happens on his screen.
Yeah, the best one was the LNG EDG game.
Yeah, LNG
at the start
EDG.
of the year. That was our first Nirvana game of the entire season, and we were like still kind of not really sure what the format was going to look like, and then we saw that game. And I remember we were watching this one together, Blockster, as we were waiting for our shift, and we were like, "Oh Lord,
Oh, boy.
like, oh man." Hey, to be fair, these teams I feel like have started to look a little bit better.
Yes.
Obviously, LGD has looked good. EDG continuing to step up, and then obviously LNG, like with Xiaofeng coming in, like
That was
even
the
though
previous
it's less
look
best
of
of threes,
LNG.
less stage experience, like these guys are getting a little bit better throughout the split.
It's genuinely going to be very interesting once we watch these teams go meet up. I'm slightly sad that the format is so quick in these play-ins. I think it would have been very interesting to have seen a bracket with double elim, or just a bracket where you get fed into the tournament at different points, because I would have loved to have seen an LGD up against a Thunder Talk, up against a Ninjas in Pajamas right here, to see if the bottom end of Group Ascend and top end of Group Nirvana really are as close as you would otherwise think. The fact that you then come out of this Group Nirvana and immediately get fed into the potential BLG or Weibo machine, I don't know that feels particularly fair. I get why they're doing it, right? They want to get through these play-ins as quickly as possible, get to the playoffs. MSI is rapidly approaching for us as well once we get to the end of the split. It makes sense. But still, it would have been really fun to have seen one of those brackets where we get to see the bottom teams play up against each other, and, you know, the BLG sat waiting for you at the end of the play-ins bracket.
Yeah, it's such a brutal format too,
So
where
brutal.
you play this entire super long regular season, especially if you're in Group Ascend. If you don't finish in the top 4, one singular best of 5 can just end your whole split.
Yeah.
Like, immediately. There's no double elim. It's completely single elimination. One single play in best of 5 for you guys down there. So it's brutal. What really can unfold. The LPL split overall, I think we can, in one word, kind of say brutal. Because
Yes. It's brutal for everyone as well. There's no good end of the bargain here. Playing 18 best of 3s is amazing for viewership. I love the fact that we've got this Group Nirvana where it feels like there's constantly a hype matchup. Every single day there's a really important one versus some of the top teams. We're not seeing a lot of just complete smackdowns between top and bottom teams. There's a bit of stratification happening. NIP, Thunder Talk, they haven't been looking so hot, and the NIP have been on quite a slide. But it's been really interesting, right, with the FPX and Weibo, they've been on the rise. Seeing BLG looking a little bit worse, beginning to drop down. That's genuinely been very interesting, but even then, you're still playing 18 best of 3s, brutal for the players, or you're playing 5 best of 3s, which just kind of sucks in that there's really not a lot of games for you to improve, for you to be able to get things together. If you're down in Group Nirvana, you obviously had team play issues, and not getting to play as many games up against other opponents really, really sucks for your just overall development as a squad.
Yeah, it's brutal. Is you either get like too many best of 5 or 10 best of 3s, or maybe not enough.
Not
There's
quite
not really a
enough.
middle ground there. But
After you've just played 3 best of 5s for your previous split, which was also brutal, but in a completely opposite kind of way. Genuinely, the LPL formats are whack. I have absolutely no clue who decided it. I'm enjoying it immensely. I think it's a very interesting way to look at it as a viewer, but as a player, I do not know how much I would be enjoying it.
yeah, we did see the lower third disappear. And so part of me is maybe thinking that that's a good sign or a really bad sign, that we're like
Yes.
going to the break. I'm not entirely sure just yet. We gotta like stay on our toes a little bit because, of course, still waiting for the pause, but eventually,
Yeah.
as soon as we get back in the game, it's gonna get chaotic. So like,
Yeah,
it's
the
gonna,
way
like,
that they shock us back into it, and you're mid-sentence about how your weekend was, and now you're casting the team fight.
yeah, exactly. I'm a little worried about that. Weekend was good though. Got to do some more esports work over North American Collegiate League, which actually has a lot of similarities to the LPL in that teams are beating teams that they probably shouldn't, and there's just like a lot of chaos and a lot of unorthodox gameplay that's going on. Very similar to this series. So
That does not surprise me. The UKL is very similar formations at the moment. We've got no undefeated teams, which is so good. In our previous split, we had one team win literally every single game. They didn't drop a single game, not in the groups, not in the best of series, and then won the whole tournament. Awesome for them. Not awesome for the overall team play of the league, so it's much more interesting this split. It seems like anybody can beat anybody.
just like here, Group Ascend. Hey, what a beautiful transition that we just came up with there, right? You know, only top esports are kind of alone at the top, but even they have dropped a series to JG earlier on in the year, so everybody kind of does seem beatable in their own way, and specifically for teams like WE, FPX, who didn't really have too many expectations for them going into Group of Ascend. Now winning 3-4 series in this first round robin, it's gonna get really wild. And part of me is like happy about that because it means a lot of competition. But also part of me is like, does that mean that just everybody in the LPL is kind of bad? Its first stand is kind of a bit of a prequel of what's to come internationally. I don't know. I don't know yet. So
it's always the issue for these leagues, right? Where obviously what they would love is to have 10 teams who are all the best in the entire world and completely beating people. That's obviously never going to be the case. And so maybe it's better for your region internationally if you've got, I don't know, like in the LEC, a G2 who just wins everything, is easily the best team, nobody's competing with them domestically, but once they get to the international, you know, there's a chance they're going to make it to a quarterfinals, maybe if they really push it, a semi-finals or something. Or is it better to just, within your domestic region, have all of your teams be competing up against each other really well? Seems like there's a lot of movement, but at the same time, it's because everybody's kind of on par and that par's not great. You go to internationals and kind of get smacked around. The fact that we had top esports win last split, go to international, get smacked around, come back, and are continuing to kind of dominate here in the LPL, it doesn't fill me with the most confidence going forward.
That's the thing, you know, in the LTA, we had Team Liquid win the split, then looked pretty bad at first stand, I will say. Like, I'm an NA homer all the way, but they didn't look great in the best of 3 series that they did play. And now they've come back and actually have struggled a little bit as well. So that's kind of a sign that maybe some of that is carrying over, and maybe some other teams have been able to kind of step into their shoes a little bit more. But here in the LPL, that's not the case. Top esports had themselves, I would say, a disappointment in terms of how their run in first stand went, but then immediately have come back and still look like one of the better teams here in the league. Is that a good thing that they bounced back really quickly, or is that just a sign that maybe the rest of the league hasn't been able to keep up? You know, only time will tell as we get towards our next international. Obviously going to be good that we have 2 teams representing the LPL this time, I believe. And also for me, I won't have to wake up at 3 a.m. to watch all the first stand game. I could actually, it's in our time zone. It's in our region.
It's about as bad as possible for people in Europe a lot of the time, these NA tournaments. Do I want to wake up at 1 o'clock in the morning to watch League of Legends? I mean, to be fair, I've been waking up at 1 o'clock in the morning to watch lots of North American sports recently, so it's not the end of the world to watch some extra League, and I'm very excited for MSI. I really like the change that MSI had, moving towards having multiple teams from all of the regions, having just the top team from every region during MSI, and now during First Stand. It's fun, you know, it's an interesting way of running the tournament, but it doesn't feel like you get any of these crazy upsets. There's a lot less storylines you can really run. You can't have those within region matchups, which I know a lot of people dislike, but I find quite interesting because the teams that make it to Worlds, to these MSIs, usually within their regions had a lot of series against each other, have a lot of history. It's the sort of matchup you've seen before, and getting to see that on the international stage, bring those top tier matchups from your own region to the international viewership, I find very interesting.
And maybe if one of your teams doesn't have it, the other team will, right? And so that's like the other part of it too. If one team is struggling, it's not your whole region being doomed. You got another representative to maybe come to bat for you. Again, we're still waiting for what this pause is going to entail. Now, obviously, the path for either of these teams to international this season, not super likely.
Possible.
Is possible. It would involve them beating probably the 5th place team in the LPL, and then, of course, you know, finishing top 2 of the playoffs. So they'd have to go on a crazy run, but...
Yes, it would be the situation where you win your matchup today, if you're EDG, win your matchup the next week as well. So win a couple more matchups here in Group Nirvana, win a best of 5 versus the 5th or 6th best team out of Group Ascent, which right now would be Weibo Gaming or BLG. Then you make it into the playoffs and win 5 best of series, best of 5s, and then maybe you make it to MSI. It's a genuinely crazy road. If one of these teams were to do it, it would be one of the best storylines, I think, possibly ever. And it means that the team would be incredibly battle-tested if they were to make it. So, you know, it would be interesting. Do I think it's likely? No. Do I think it's even technically possible? Not sure. But it would be cool.
Yeah, it's technically possible, you know, to answer that part of your question.
Yeah,
but
statistically...
Are we believing it? I don't know just yet. I like what LGD kind of
I like
put
LGD,
together.
yeah.
I like the fact that they're like basically a full rookie roster coming into things, but maybe a little bit more time, a little bit more development. Will it come in this game? Will it come in this series? We'll potentially see. I'm bracing myself a little bit, Blockster. I see XQW has gone back to the mouse and keyboard position. He's looking a little locked in.
Sitting down is good. I like the view of him sat at his computer. It's never a good sign for League of Legends resuming when one of your players isn't sat at the desk. Be a bit mean to him to really immediately throw back in. He's just not there.
That is true. Yeah, that would not be a good position here. It looks like we're getting some stuff
I see
down
the
here.
word bug. I can read bug and LPL.
I also see the word rules set, or sorry, a set of numbers here, which looks like a rule set.
Yeah.
Kind of change here. We have our producer Kai. He's on it. I think he speaks a little bit of Chinese, so he'll try to figure out what exactly this says. We see the word bug, obviously. We might be getting a chrono break, is what I'm kind of assuming at this point, which would be crazy at this point of a chaotic game.
Yeah.
I don't know what exactly that will entail, but again, we will continue to update you as we continue to get more information.
Yeah, I mean, the point at which you pull up a rule set usually is where you're saying, hey, something went wrong with a piece of equipment before the team fight happened. Now we're going to have to pull back. It would be fun to see Chrono Break. I actually don't remember the last time that I've seen a Chrono Break in a series I've particularly been watching. Don't know if you've seen one recently either, too.
No, I don't think so. Okay. Well, it looks like maybe that is what happened here. I don't know if the stream could hear what Kai was saying to us, but basically... Okay, we were receiving word from production, if you guys were wondering why we just decided to sit still there for a second. Basically, Chrono Break has happened here, and we're back on the Rift here for this game. Blockster, we finally made it. Basically what happened is there was some sort of bug that Wink decided, and EDG decided that they wanted to try and Chrono Break from, and so, as you see here, no equalizer utilized, no potential bad situation here for EDG, as they're feeling very good about where things are currently at.
Yeah, significant tech issue. EDG were given the option of a Chrono Break, have taken the Chrono Break, and now we move on from a couple of seconds prior. Like you said, all of that initial explosive play that could potentially have happened does not. As you saw, there was nobody talking during that tech pause, so it is clearly still enforced that you're not allowed to talk during that tech pause. That's 20 minutes where you've just been sat there with your own thoughts, being able to think about what your next set of moves are. At the point at which you've been sat there for 15 minutes, you're definitely thinking a Chrono Break is going to be coming on. So these teams are going to be considering what the next set of moves are, and we'll see what the outcome of that is going to be.
And now these guys are going to lock back in. So do we, Blockster. We were talking about all these different stuff, and now we got a team fight all of a sudden. ZZ coming forward, going to be immediately matched by a 3-man impale from Nile, but he's taking a whole lot of damage, and he'll get taken down by Xiao Hao. So it's EDG forcing the initiatives, is EDG going in with the unstoppable onslaught, and now a numbers advantage, most notably the jungler for LGD out of the fight for the next 35 seconds.
Can you now turn that into getting this Baron? Wow, that's a lot of damage. On just gets nearly one tap right there. Redemption is going to come through, plenty of healing available through Wink, but that is going to put a little bit of a dent in the plans towards the Baron. The lane was not fully secured, so this is going to be a possible LGD walk-in. They have to get through ZDZ to get there, and with no jungler, do you even want to take this fight?
One thing on damage, he might quickly run into X2W, and Sansa still alive, pops the Culling, now X2W's in a lot of trouble! Oh! They'll take him down! Knockup lands on the Xiaoya, a 5v3 across the map, the health bar still on LGD side, just a little bit of Nio has respawned. So no Baron for the taking for EG, and they will back away with just picking up 2 members.
That's not the end of the world right there for LGD. The fact that you're able to stop that Baron from going down, yes, a couple of kills do end up happening, and you lose the flash out of XQW, that could be impactful. Still, people are going to be back up and available, at least your jungler back up and available as this next Drake is going to spawn. Mountain Drake is now on the map. We've got 18 seconds until we're going to be seeing the mid lane available for EDG. Giving over this Drake, not the end of the world though. Yeah, it gives your opponent soul point, but I think you're going to be happy with that as LGD. Not losing the Baron is the critical part here.
Most definitely, and that could have gone a lot worse for LGD. Man, that must be so demoralizing. You were in such a good position around that play, then you got chrono braked on, you lost your jungler, lost your mid laner, and now you give up Mountain Soul points with Angel potentially looking for a play onto Nayo. But now he's getting caught out just a little bit. Another Silent comes through, but Xiao will immediately flash away from it. The target though is X2W, and now Kijiao will try to finish him off on pizza to kill the YCX. And it's a numbers advantage once again here for EDG. They find yet another pick off of just ZDZ pressing the go button, ulted down mid.
And now you've got this mid lane priority right here for EDG. They're going to be able to melt through this tower if they can actually get on top of it. Recall's having to come back through out of the LGD members to pull them back, so they're going to lose this inhibitor tower. The inhibitor may well also follow. That's going to be a massive pressure point right here for EDG. This is 2 fights in a row where, like you said, just have to press the engage out of ZDZ. Angel could come flying in as well with the Weaver's Wall, just getting caught out. It was only the support on that second fight that ends up falling. LGD still cannot make these fights work without all of their members up and available.
They haven't had that for very often here. Ever since that pause ended up coming through Bloxer, it continued to be one player picked off here, one player picked off there for LGD, and now EDG have themselves a 5,000 gold lead once again, a lot of it towards both the bottom side here of the map for On, and then in the jungle for Xiaohao, who's having himself a very good game on this in-south.
Yeah, Xiaohao's had genuinely an incredibly impressive performance right here on the Xin. Is just constantly jumping onto either Xiaoya or XQW, making it incredibly uncomfortable for them to just be able to use the range advantage that you really want to be exploiting as a Caitlyn or an Azir. It's getting pushed around so much. So here for LGD, they're going to have to find themselves that big wombo engage. The combo very, very important between Nayo and Sasa. So far, we haven't actually got to see it fully come out. We've also not been able to see a big Shurima shuffle out of XQW. Without these key teamfight ultis landing, these fights are going to be incredibly difficult, if not impossible, for LGD to be able to win.
And even though the Caitlyn was to have gotten a little bit ahead in the early game for Xiaoya and YCX, On and Winx really have come to play in that mid game, and now look at On's items. 4.5 in his inventory. Even though the Lucian is a little bit, more vulnerable at this stage in the game, as we start to get later on, he can still pack a punch, especially against some of these squishy targets. So LG have to be very careful walking into this river right now. Doing a good job face checking just the slightest bit to force EDG back towards that mid lane, and we again will wait a big play around neutral objective or not. Now we've seen On dash forward very aggressively with these relentless pursuits, and sometimes that's come back to bite them a little bit. I think EDG has to be a little bit careful to make sure that doesn't happen. As I say that, Angel just weavers walls right in the middle of everybody, but it splits up Nayo at the perfect opportunity. Gets knocked up by 2 spells at the same time. The tidal wave, the last one there, and On picks up the kill on Nayo again. The EDG jungler is able to find the LG counterpart.
The fact that you just get one tap through right there once again as the jungler. This is an untenable position right here as LGD. They're going to have to put on another Baron defense. ZDZ currently in the mid lane, stopping any potential trade play where you push through the mid. Make things that much harder to try play out. You do get to get a little bit close right here. Still got yourself a couple of key ultis available. This is tough though.
He's teleporting in because he was getting cut off by the rest of LGD. It's still 5-4 across the map. Now you're respawning in 5 seconds, so no chance of a steal unless some miracle happens for LGD. The smite is secured by Xiaohao. 2 flashes are utilized, and EDG are going to get out scot-free with a 6,000 gold lead and the Baron buff in their hands.
So rough right here for LGD. Everything that was going right for them, all of a sudden going wrong after this tech pause, and now with the Baron buff up and available, this composition is going to be able to maul through these towers. We'll see what the setup is going to be, or if you feel like you now need to go and fight around this Drake. Mountain Drake would help so much. It would stop a lot of what we just saw right here. Xiaoya just picking out on, using the ulti, taking a chunk of health out of him. Well, if you're basically just having to get through a 3 Mountain Dragon Mountain Soul, that's way less effective. Nayo! Oh, he misses!
Far forward, he does not find the impale though, and he's completely singled out. However, Xiaohao also was trying to fight a 1v4, but On's able to pick up the kill on the jungler first. EDG dashing forward, XQW forced to flash away. EDG trying to chase down the remainder of LGD, but it's Nayo dying for the 3rd time in a row, Bloxer, and that means that the soul point is on the table now for EDG.
Yeah, this is going to be picked up here. You can't imagine that there's going to be an LGD fight back onto this one. And yes, Zhao also ends up taking a lot of damage, but because he got the pressure guard up and available, it's just Sassy dealing damage to him. And then the main thing right now is that it's these key teamfight ultimates just not missing. Nio completely whiffs right there on the Impale. He's also run so far away from the rest of his team that I don't know the follow-up could have even come through. But more than that, this is now the third teamfight in a row where XQW has not used the ulti. You have to use this. You currently are a 3-item and Oblivion Orb Azir. Not using this ulti is going to be a key contributing factor as to why LGD can't get anything done.
Yeah, I mean, we were hoping to see the Wombo combo come through, right? The Equalizer, top of the Impale, with the Emperor's Divide coming on top of that one. We just have not seen that come into fruition. Obviously, when that has not been the case, EDG are able to win out on the fights, and it's a lot of ZDZ pressing the go button forward. Angel has had some really nice Weaver's walls. Zhao Hao buying so much space by just being an incredibly tanky Xin Zhao. But LGD, with this team fighting competition, have not really gotten there, even though this should be their point of the game. And now it's going to become even much harder than it originally was because you have the Mountain Soul to deal with too, which EDG able to pick up off that last play.
One of the saving graces right now is that a couple of the members are barely going to get any stronger in this game. If you keep holding out, right, On has already got himself up to that 5-item point. Yes, that's bad in that he's going to be hit like a truck right now. There's not really anywhere else for this solution build to go. If you could stall out long enough, maybe there's a chance that you get all of your item breakpoints on your Azir and on your Caitlyn, and then maybe they press their ultis too, and things look much better. That being said, the Sion's just going to be getting tankier and tankier. This is only a 2-item Sion so far, and yet ZDZ still has a ton of HP. He's able to just buy so much space and just keeps pressing the go button, initiating these fights here for EDG. EDG on the other end of this course looks so good. Weaver's coming in.
And now Shaya is completely singled out. It's a flash over the Weaver's wall. Culling comes out, not too much damage just yet. The seismic shove only finds Nio, but he uses it to try to close the gap on a Zhao Hao. The Xin Zhao could be in trouble. XQW tries to knock back two with the Shurima shuffle, and the first kill goes on to Zhao Hao. LGD trying to find this fight, but Angel is still alive. Weak still full HP on the backline, and it's a 2-for-2 overall on the map. EDG almost found the fight they were looking for, but Angel's the one to try to save the day.
Yeah, I mean, LGD so close to turning that one around. They managed to pick up some key kills right here. Big shutdown onto Zhao Hao, big shutdown onto On, but the teleport coming straight back through right here from ZDZ, and they're going to continue this push. The mid lane inhibitor has respawned. They can take down this top lane. Make it so hard to step out of the base. Now they're going to go in here.
Yeah, Angel could be in trouble right now. ZDZ. Jin lands on a 2. YCX the first to fall. Angel finally will drop as Sasa will burn him down. And now ZDZ and Wink are on the run. And so LG defend their base. No inhibitor going down here as we have eclipsed the 38-minute mark of game number 1.
Oh boy, this game going quite long and incredibly back and forth. The Weaver's Wall is good. Xiaoyu gets completely caught out right here. Just about manages to avoid fully getting locked up and murdered by ZDZ. And then on the re-engage, Mayu actually picks off a relatively important target. The thing is, it's the Xin Zhao, so a lot of this initial damage isn't able to come through because he's got that Crescent Guard up and available. Once it falls, once everybody's in and amongst it, then you're able to turn this fight around, but ZDZ, again, buying so much space, not enough time for Angel and Wing to be able to do what they need to in this fight. It's better. It's a better look for LGD, but it feels a little bit like a last stand, like a last desperate gasp. They're only 4,000 gold behind in this game, right? They're not out of this one, and none of their inhibitors did fall, so they are going to be in a slightly better position to step out of the base, but we've got 40 seconds until the Baron is up, and I think more critically, 2 minutes until we're going to have an Elder Drake on the map.
But oh man, you can see just the glimpses of what this LGD composition can do if they can avoid these hard engages once again. Nio once more singled out here by LGD, by EDG, and he's gonna go down instantly here in the fight. The seismic shove lands on YCX. He'll then need the next to drop. It's a 3 for nothing already. Xiaoya getting singled out here by the Xin Zhao, and that's just gonna be a clean ace for EDG. Once again, Nio the one to get caught out here for LGD, and EDG are the ones to pick up this first game of the series.
Never mind. EDG, they do not need a Baron, they do not need an Elder, they're just going to close this game out right here. A 40-minute banger back and forth with a tech pause right in the middle. But taking game number 1 here in a critical series for EDG. Winning this one gets them that much closer to making it out of Group Nirvana.
And Edward Gaming, they broke the time of the game. They chrono broke us a little bit. And as soon as we came back from that pause, it was all them the rest of the way. And a big credit of that has to go to ZDZ on the Scion, pressing those unstoppable onslaughts right down the mid lane. Somehow LGD falling for it every single time. They were not able to set themselves up in the right situations. They never got the wombo combos that we were looking for. And it means that they are down 0-1 in a series here in Group Nirvana, at risk of losing their first one of this group.
It's a really, really odd game to watch because it felt very much like it was a game played in 3 parts, where in the initial plays it's looking pretty good overall for LGD. They play the other game very well. EDG then shows that they are great at the team fights during the mid game. LGD begin to come back a little bit, and then after that pause, EDG all the way through. And I think part of the reason that game ended up being quite so dominant in the end was that the engages just weren't there. There were multiple fights in a row where XQW doesn't get an ulti off, and then also Nio leaps forwards, tries to impale, but he's died. He's lost most of his HP by the point at which he even starts the impale. Just isn't able to find any picks. It's the point at which EDG start grouping as 5 members where the picks just stop happening and LGD just fall out of this game.
And that's a bit of a surprising fall off here for LGD. And shout out to EDG for being able to find these creative strategies that ended up working for them, finding them success, and eventually ending up in them taking this first game. It took a little bit longer than maybe they might have expected, might have anticipated, both because of the chrono break pause, the long delay between actually ending this game, and also the fact that it took 40 minutes in totality. But I think the big thing, Loxer, is we never really got a full-on 5v5 team fight, or at least the way that LG would have wanted to set it up. It always started with Nio being a little bit too far away from the rest of his team, getting eaten up here by a Scion ulti, taken down before anybody could really dish out any follow-up damage on his team. And that's what LG are going to have to turn back towards. I feel like overall Nio have done better on champions that do a little bit more damage, have a little bit more agency than something like the Skarner.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to see from them in our next game.
Something like the Vi, I would really like to see the Nio Vi pop up at some point. I would have liked the Nio Xin Zhao as well, but obviously that one now going to be off the board because of Fearless. It was always a little bit of an odd draft where you have those beginnings of a wombo combo that kind of doesn't fully get completed because you go for the Caitlyn Karma, and it works during the early game. There was a point where it looked like Shaya was going to be able to deal all of the damage in that game. And Arn, he wasn't able to get ahead particularly. Yeah, there were a couple kills in his lane, but he didn't get them. But all of a sudden, once we get into these big team fights, was able to just start wrecking through people with the culling and just through the damage you can lay down as a Lucian alongside a Nami and hit that 5-item mark very, very early on into this game. You can see it right here. The mid-game, it begins to look pretty good for LGD, but they're never able to fully pull it back, and from there, it's just a slow decline down towards EDG. Arn does a ton of damage in that game. Honestly, the rest of his squads don't really do that much. There's a lot more damage that actually gets done overall by LGD, but they're not quite able to finish off any of those kills, and hey, that's the way you win games.
Yeah, I mean, the damage only matters if the enemy health bar hits 0. Yeah, that's what happened more on EDG's side. And it came down to a lot of these big picks. Obviously, the poke damage from Xiaoya and XQW ended up being massive, but it just was not enough to burst down the front line of ZDZ and Xiaohao. And if I had to give an MVP, it would probably be one of those two. I know that Angel played pretty well. It had some really great team fights. And I know that ZDZ didn't have the best early game, obviously, as you see here to start off these highlights. But the way that he was able to just use these unstoppable onslaughts, I think, honestly, more effective than almost any other competitive Scion that I've seen in a really long time.
Yeah, I feel like it's between ZDZ and Xiaohao here. Both of them had very good games. I think the scoreline's a little bit more flashy for Xiaohao, but if you watch all of these big team fights that we ended up seeing, ZDZ is a massive part of why EDG was coming out on top, because he's just buying so much space right here. Yeah, he dies, but Xiaohao has to flash away. It leaves him in a much more vulnerable position. He actually still manages to chase down Shaya in this one, and in a lot of the remaining fights, he doesn't die. He eventually gets to the point where he's so tanky that that's a big part of why there's a ton of damage numbers available to LGD. Yeah, you did 30,000 damage, but if 25,000 of that was pumped into a Scion who never died, who had 6,000 health 25 minutes into this game and never looked back, yeah, like you said, if it doesn't hit 0, it doesn't really matter. I'd be perfectly happy with either of them picking it up. I think a wildcard as well would be Wink. I think Wink played a very solid game overall as well. It was a big part of setting up the early game success that we got to see out of this Xinjiao.
This is the name of the game. Just using those silence, as I believe this is the final fight. Or maybe one of them here. There was a lot of them in the mid-lane that ended up happening, I will say.
It turned into an ARAM very quickly, and luckily for EDG, it had the slightly better ARAM composition. And I mean, just watch the waves throughout these team fights, right? Constantly landing multi-man waves, buffing up this Lucian, allowing him to be doing a ton of damage, keeping everybody alive as well. After not getting caught out, I'd be perfectly happy with a Wink MVP as well. This is a great show of a Shurima Shuffle that landed onto one person and barely won a team fight-ish for your squad.
They went even basically.
Yeah.
Which was about as good as it got for LGD after we of course got that pause. This was the final team fight, and again, Nio just getting caught out multiple times. Not what is going to be able to get yourself a victory in a competitive professional series here in the LPL. This is a guy that came in as a spark plug for this young roster full of rookies, and was able to do a lot, especially in the first couple of series, but did not have himself the best game here today.
Alright, we'll see the MVP pretty soon. Honestly, I don't know who they're going to vote for. Recently, the voters have very much been liking these supports. I wouldn't be super surprised if we do actually see Wink be able to pick this one up. Top, jungle, support. I think it's usually a good sign for your game when your tank top laner, your engaged jungle, and your enchanter support are the ones who perform the best, because it just allows your main damage carriers in mid and bot lane to not think about the game so much, to be able to just play it so much easier, so much more effectively when they're not having to put the team on their back and weave their way through team fights and, you know, worry so much about the opposition being able to get to them.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see what LGD do to try to respond here, because it seemed like they got kind of what they wanted in the draft. They got this Wombo combo topside, they got the bot lane that they wanted. EDG threw them a bunch of wrinkles in the early game, and they seemed to be able to respond to it nicely. It's just the team fights did not end up working their way. Xiao Hao being named the MVP, not surprising at all. 5,000 gold ahead of Nio at the end of that game. Very well deserved for the jungler here of EDG.
Yeah, he was a massive part of why the team was able to find success early on in the game, ganking very effectively, setting up the Lucian army for success, and then throughout the rest of the game was just constantly very aggressive, getting involved in a lot of these big team fights as well, and absorbing so much damage with the Crescent Guard too. It just stopped a lot of what LGD were looking to put down.
Yeah, and we'll see if Jaha can keep it up here and get EDG a spot, of course, towards that top two. Again, a win in the series, but at least guarantee that their team would continue to play on into the split 3 of 2025. They're going to try to do that here with another win against LGD. We're going to get to that after this short break, but before we get there, we want to give a big thank you to all of you watching here at home, and an extreme thank you to our Ko-fi and YouTube subscribers who help level up the show. A lot of the initial payments go into upgrading the broadcast, but a huge bulk of it pays on-air talent and content creators. You can subscribe to our Ko-fi, which is currently linked in the chat, to unlock perks like early access to content and the ability to ask interview questions for our unique on-site interviews and see your name on screen once a week, as you see here. So thank you very much to all of our Ko-fi VIPs. We will come back with Game 2 of this first Nirvana series between EDG and LGD right after this. Welcome back, everybody, to LPL English. We have game number 2 in our Nirvana group stage, a matchup between Edward Gaming and LGD Gaming about to begin. EDG in what was a very extended situation here. As you can see, almost 2 hours into the broadcast here on the show, only one game completed. There was a bit of a pause in between, a 40-minute game, a 1v1. A lot of stuff happened. Regardless, it results in EDG taking control and putting LGD at risk of dropping their first series overall in Group Nirvana.
Which would be a massive surprise. EDG, they've been looking better, most certainly, but LGD, they've been looking like they didn't even deserve to be here in Group Nirvana. They've been dismantling other teams, and all of a sudden, they're at risk, right? Of course, it was a bit of a weird game. Maybe the mental just wasn't quite able to keep going, and we'll see a much better look from LGD during this game number 2, but really great look from EDG to be able to pick that one up, and now really have LGD on the ropes.
And we remain on the same side because LGD did win the 1v1 for side select. They opted for blue side in game 1. That didn't work out for them, so now they pick blue side again in game number 2. We'll see if there's any differentiations here in the pick ban or in this first ban phase specifically. Obviously, being in that true fearless format, none of the champions that were played in game number 1 can be played again, and that could mean that different priorities do arise in terms of what champions want to be picked here early on. Most notably that Gwen left available here for Sasa to potentially take, but it looks like maybe they want to get Nayo on some more comfort. He did not look great on that Skarner in game number 1. The Lilia would be something that he had a pentakill on earlier on in the season, so definitely knows what he's doing on that champion.
Absolutely. The Vi, the Lilia, I think those have been his best looking champions so far, and they are just going to take the Lilia. Lilia also works into a lot of compositions. She doesn't really pigeonhole you into one specific style of play, so we will see what the response is out of EDG. In terms of good things that are still up and available, you've got stuff, like the Jace. You also could potentially pick yourself up. Ooh. I don't know, actually. In terms of things that EDG really like to take early on, they've very much been liking to pick their main lanes, the bot lane and the mid lane, a lot later on into the game. They will just take the Jace right here.
So Xiaohao, that's his how he won the MVP on it, and for good reason. That's been one of his best champions all split long. After that, you're looking at maybe the Viego, the Skarner, which is not available, the Vi, which is not available, so his champion pool might get pinched a little bit. I would expect the jungler here on 3, but it looks like the solo laners early on selected here for EDG. The Angel on the rise, EDG presumably on that Jace. Of course, picking that without the Scion being available means you already dodge yourself away from one of the big notable counters here for EDG.
And Angel has looked really good on this rise. It's been one of his best looking champions so far. Really good proactive uses of the Realm Warp is what we are looking for out of these rises. Have to see what the matchup is going to be. Could well be the Corki. Corki obviously can move down into the bot lane as well. And actually gonna get the Wukong locked in. So this is a Wukong counter right here. Sasu gonna take it into ZDZ. You can go toe-to-toe with the Jace early on, but it's a pretty skill-based matchup.
That's fascinating here for Sasa. I mean, he's been able to play some of his own pocket picks throughout the split. Things like the Udyr top lane obviously have risen up in priority specifically for LGD. But this Wukong pick, we have not seen much of it since, what was it, like season 10 or 11. Now, getting picked up as that traditional counter into the Jace, as you said, can close that gap really easily, can win on those early duels, but definitely put your team at a little bit of risk in terms of damage in the late game. So having that backup in terms of the Corki and the Lilia going to be big. The response here to round out the competition for EDG's first rotation will be the Viego going towards Xiaohao.
The Viego is something that we're seeing as usually a pick during game number 3, where you've got quite a lot of these pickups no longer available to you. It's pretty aggressive in that you can gank effectively early on, but at the same time scales really well, and alongside something like a Jace and a Ryze. This is good setup for you to be able to get that first kill. Always the most important thing when you're playing the Viego. Get that first kill, turn the rest of the team fight on from there. I think it also always opens up something like a Jinx, where you are very much just looking to burst out that first initial person, get excited, get the body available for Xiaohao, and then play the rest of the team fight out from there. Again, we are waiting to have our bottom laners picked at the end of these rounds. Very rare. We usually see bot laners and supports picked up a little bit earlier on. Nautilus taken off the board, as is the Kalista. The lack of Kalista or Nico available really makes that bot lane a lot less explosive overall, but we do still have strong pickups available. Things like the Misfortune and the Ashe still here.
And those picks have been very important specifically towards On, I would say. Like, those are the utility focused champions that he's been a little bit better at. Obviously, we saw him on the Lucian have a very high presence, so looks like they might leave him for the last pick here on EDG's side. Go down sports tier list pretty heavily.
So it's better. It's a much better pickup here without that counter of the Alistair available to you. With the rail grabs there, I do wonder if EDG are potentially looking towards that Misfortune. It's one of the best pairings. That being said, though, you've got a Wukong already. That could jump into the backline and disrupt onto that bullet time. Always a bit of a risk to take it without the full tanky frontline setup that you would otherwise want.
Now, what does XQW want to play? We're looking for a bot laner, most likely, as well. Okay, so that's going to actually flex the Corki into the mid lane here for XQW. I feel like we've seen it more and more towards the bottom lane, but still can be played mid, especially into the Rise. A relatively safe matchup here for the Corki.
Yeah, should be neutralizing that one out. You're not particularly looking at that as an explosive lane. And it is going to be the Leona right here. This is some great long-range engage right here that you can try to play around. It's some non-committal as well. And then you can go jumping in with your Wukong. This dive pairing into the backline going to make it pretty uncomfortable to play any of these less mobile carries for EDG. I think they're going to have to look to something that can have a bit of survivability in and of itself. The Kai'Sa is a little bit risky here. We usually see the Kai'Sa in these full into the backline dive-based compositions. Not exactly what this is, but can pair up well with the Rel and the Viego to go make the backline uncomfortable.
A very interesting draft that we have had here in game number 2. Looking more like a game 3 draft with some of the unorthodox champions that we have up here. We got a Wukong top lane, we have Corki in the mid lane, we have a Viego picked up relatively early. I'm not really sure what we're expecting to see here from either of these teams. I feel like maybe picks are the name of the game for LGD, given that they have a Wukong that can maybe dive into a mid lane, have the Jhin and Leona from long range, but
yeah,
I'm not too sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the way these teamfights are going to have to work out for LGD is you land one bit of longer range engage, whether that be a Swirl Seed or just going to be that Solar Flare out of YCX, and then you can just go all in. You can dive in with the Leon, you can dive in with the Wukong and the Lilia, get a big multi-man sleep off, and then you've got the long-range artillery between a Jhin and a Corki to be able to deal that backline damage. They've got lots of AD damage available to them. They really need Nayu to pop off on this AP Lilia to really round out the composition, but there isn't exactly a ton of tanky champions on EDG that you have to worry about burning through. EDG, though, they are very much going to be about using that ZDZ poke at the beginning of these fights, and then I think they kind of want to turn these fights into a bit of a mess, not necessarily a straight up front to back. You just want to be all around to be able to get on an Angel and Xiaohao close enough to actually deal their damage.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie, EDG's composition looks a little messy. They're going to have to really scrap around, which is what they were able to do in game number 1, by the way, to get themselves that first game victory over LGD, our only undefeated team left here in Group Nirvana. But now they're facing match point up against EDG. With a win here, EDG will guarantee themselves a spot in the split 3 of 2025 at the very least, and create themselves a very nice path playing into that play-in stage. On to the way for game number 2.
Absolutely. EDG. Potentially gonna get jumped here. Okay. Wonder if we were potentially gonna see a flash Zenith Blade right there out of YCX. Doesn't decide to go for it, everybody's just gonna take resets. Most likely just gonna see some standard lanes. Although, of course, in the previous game we did see a lot of movement around. That was mainly because these bot lanes were looking to get very far ahead early on, specifically the bot lane of EDG with that Lucian Nami, and you had a Scion on your team, so you weren't so worried about putting him in a worse spot. In this game, where you've got a slightly more standard bot lane, and you've also got a Jace in the top lane, you really don't want to put your Jace behind. He can't fight back in the same way a Scion can.
Yeah, your Jace already potentially at risk of losing out on this 1v1 pretty hard against this Wukong if things don't go your way. So it looks like EDG are going to have to cede away their top side Raptor camps. As Nio on the Lilia, very good at taking these camps away, obviously with the blooming blows. And so now a situation arises where Xiaohao going to have to immediately path towards the bottom side instead of a vertical jungling situation for EDG.
Once again, the vertical jungling being initiated. This time LGD, much happier to go and play this one out. Now the Viego, he doesn't clear slowly, but Lilia just blasts through the jungle. One of the best things about this champion very much. We'll see what decisions he makes, where he decides to go. Is just going to head straight on down. Actually even into the mid lane here? Interesting.
Caught out. Getting a lot of damage from Angel, actually. He tried to take a very aggressive path, tried to save himself that red buff, but it's not even going to happen.
No, what you wanted right there was chicken to chicken. But in order to do chicken to chicken, you have to ensure that your enemy jungler hasn't started on the second chickens, and then that you're able to just take one set of chickens straight to the other rather than chicken into red buff. That's a little bit of an odd bit of pathing right here. It still has the same overall effect, but Xiaohao now looking for a gank mid.
Yeah, XQW gonna get flashed up upon Valkyrie already utilized. XQW knows that he's dead, not even gonna burn that flash. And so Xiaohao will pick up first blood, EDG's jungler, and a heater here this series.
And now Xiaohao can push in and potentially try to take away Nio. Does he have the smite? Yes, he has the smite. He's going to be able to pick that one up. If he wasn't able to grab that buff, that would have been completely terrible. Still, though, you can just skirmish here. Blow the flash at least out of Nio.
Sauce is going to be here first. Use that flash over the wall. Xiaohao going to be in trouble, and it's a response picked up here for LGD. But now ZDZ flashes forward. He's going to go to the skies on Nio, who flashes over the wall. And now this Jace is in so much trouble, Blockstar. And LGD get two right back for free.
Yikes, over-aggression right there out of EDG. They thought they could push their advantage. Maybe if you're able to smite steal away that blue buff, this one is playable. But as it stands, it's just way too much aggression on members. And this is exactly the start you would have wanted out of LGD. You've got the kind of composition that you're looking to get much more into the later game. You don't really need to be fighting early. But hey, if the kills walk to you, who are you to disagree?
What a strange early game here. I don't know why Xiao decided to play so hypey there in that situation, knowing that Sasa had the first move. But then, results in him going down. Gets Nio very much back into this game as well. And the top side for LGD in a very good position right now.
Themselves in a great spot, and being able to be ahead in this counter matchup right here, brilliant for LGD. Exactly what Sasa would have wanted for himself, and he's going to be a key part of these team fights right here for LGD. You have to be that frontline engage alongside the Leona in order to buy space for the Corki and Jhin. These champions want to be sitting at range, and if they're getting jumped by things like a Viego or a Kai'Sa, they just won't be able to sit and do the multiple rotations of damage that they need to really be effective as champions.
It's creating a very interesting situation across the map right now. Is again, we have not seen this Wukong top lane in a very long time. I feel like normally we get the graphics of the last time the champion was picked up in the top lane. Maybe it means that it was relatively recent, as a bit of a pocket pick. And I'm not doing my homework the right way, but looks like right now the grass Wukong doing pretty good. He's maxing the Q to just get as much bonk power as possible.
An odd gank right here. The counter very much could come through. Xiaohao not quite going to be able to get involved in that one, but still, XQW incredibly low. He's
just taking a lot of damage from gap from him as well, so not going to really be able to follow too far much. And, you know, important to note as well, XQW did not use his flash on that original gank in the mid lane, so he does have that available, while Angel and Xiaohao do not. That could mean something here, as the grubs are spawning in 15 seconds. Xiao likely to get spotted here on this ward, unless he's going to be able to invis right through it into the bush.
I'm not sure if he was
quite
spotted. Yeah. Right now, Sasa pushed back underneath his tower enough that it's not really going to be too much of an issue. We are going to have both junglers in the area, though, and the supports roaming up into mid lane.
Sasa going initially forward here on his ZDZ. Already popped the Cyclone. Use that second iteration of it as well. ZDZ knocks Sasa away. And actually, it's the Wukong winning out on that trade. The bot lane also generating priority in the mid lane here for LGD, so they're going to be able to get all three of those grubs for free.
Indeed. Going to be pushing their way forwards onto this one. Nice to be able to pick up that first set, and there's no trade onto the Drake either, so you can potentially go and fight around those as well. Usually surprising to see this be the early pickup for a composition against Viego. Viego skirmishes so well during the early game. The Lily are much more focused on getting that power farm through, hitting that level 6, and then potentially trying to fight. Even then, you need a couple items on the belt for Lily to really be doing that damage. So we'll see who's going to be able to get control around this Dragon Pit. So far, the push has been dominant for EDG. Both the mid and the bottom lane. Things are going to move around a little bit. We're going to see these bot lanes move up towards the mid lane currently. Junglers not really booking it towards this Drake for the minute, and perfectly happy right now to just farm their way up and play this early game a little bit slower now.
definitely has been slower. It's been a much more standard part of this game too. Remember in game number 1, even though the kills might have been relatively similar, it felt a lot more fast-paced because there was one move that was being matched by the other. After that first vertical jungle and the initial play, things have been relatively standard. The only difference is that Xiaoyu and YCX are now in the mid lane, with just trying to avoid on Wink, I suppose, and generate as much mid lane prio as they possibly can. Dragon still available on the bottom side. Nobody's claimed that just yet. It's been a full topside focus for LGD at the start of this game.
Very much so. Having the mid lanes, bot lanes swapping around as well just keeps people in the area for any potential fights. You want your supports around, specifically both the Rel and the Leona, incredibly good skirmishing fighters, especially the Leona right here for YCX. He's going to need a really big performance if he wants to help LGD right here get themselves this victory, send us to a game 3, and keep their undefeated split alive so far in Group Nirvana.
Taking a quick look at the standings as well, in terms of what this could mean for EDG if they lose. Loss here in the series bring them down to 2-2. They would then need to 3-2-0 their last matchup against RNG to pull themselves into a tie with LNG in terms of the game score of 3-2. That's not even to mention what Ultra Prime can do at the bottom half of this group as well, in the back half of this regular season. So, taking care of business here would certainly make yourself a much better target for getting into that play-in stage, particularly, as we're going to see another all-in popped here. Both Cyclones issued by Sasa. But is EDG doing a good job trading back, actually is. Looks like he's not going to be in much trouble, as EDG will be able to secure themselves the first strike.
The Drake going to go over nice and easily, so the trade of the 3 grubs to the Drake is going to come through. Very, very delayed, though. We've now only got a minute 20 until the next set of grubs is going to be up and available. Right now, a lot of members stood around this bottom side. You can see respect right here from XQW. He's going to attempt to head back to base, but I think he's too late on this one. Is indeed going to have it cancelled. He does have friends on the way. If you want to dive EDG, you have to do it right now.
Yeah, I don't think he'll be able to get the wave in time. So XQW should be able to keep his life, and EDG know that they do not want to go for that dive at this point. With that Swirl Seed coming out, basically guaranteed that there's multiple members in the bottom lane here. XQW can use his teleport, get it to the top side, clear out that wave, and even out the map.
Really needs to back away from that one on the bottom side, especially because you've now got those grubs scoring 40 seconds time on that one. Picking up all 6 for LGD would be useful. You can split pretty effectively on the Wukong in this situation. You can also put Senator Corky to a side lane, a relatively safe champion to be in a side lane by himself. Having the 6 grubs would really facilitate that. EDG, don't want to give that one over, you want to go fight for them, especially with the heavy skirmishing power you have with a Viego and with a Rise for yourselves. You can go join up with these fights in the realm world very, very easily.
See if they want to try to contest that. Obviously, giving away 6 grubs to any team, not going to be good, specifically for LGD, who do have themselves a decent side lane here on this Wukong. You see already the Demolish procs doing some damage, getting some plates over to the Monkey King, who now has a 5 gold lead or so above ZDZ. Angel doing some good work against XQW here in the mid lane in response. You see he's built a really nice farm loop for himself. And then he says Xiao Hao is able to start these grubs up first, but Nio moves on the way. He used that fight also. The E forces him very, very low. Will he use a little lullaby? Not just yet. So Xiao Hao forced out at 300 HP. None of the grubs going down. So it looks like LGD going to control all 6 of them here in the second game.
Yeah, that really sucks right here for EDG. They would love to have been able to at least grab 1 or 2 of them, stop the 6 from going over. These Void Mites are going to overrun the towers if you're ever given a chance to step up to them here as LGD. Xiao just stands a little bit too far forward and gets caught out. Really unfortunate for him after what was an incredibly impressive game number 1 on the Zhao.
And Nio, maybe feeling a little bit more comfortable. Again, this newer player coming into LGD after not playing much in the LPL before. 4 specifically split 2. They gave him the champions he was comfortable on at the start of this Nirvana stage. It worked out well. Then on that Scar in the last game, did not look as good. So now he's right back to the champion that he got a pentakill on in the LPL. And doing himself a couple of favors with that. He's looking for a dive here on Asasa, but a little bit too risky here with that ultimate back up off of cooldown.
Absolutely. Have to pressure on these lanes as well. What they can do to really push this game a little bit further forwards, right? LGD, they're happy for this game to be a little bit slower overall. It's not like they completely outscale EDG, but it does feel very much like EDG. They want to be putting their pressure on a little bit earlier on, using the fact they've got a jungler that likes ganking, likes getting involved a little bit more earlier on. But so far, Xiaohao hasn't been able to find those angles, does now have the Trinity Force, so it's going to do a lot of damage right here on the Viego. Let's see whether he's able to actually find the angles in.
That's going to be big. The resets for EDG going to be crucial for having their competition succeed. Maybe just again, chaos kind of unfolding here, kind of adds on top of that, right? Blocky, you don't want necessarily the full-on front-to-back 5v5. Feels like LGD going to have a better job of doing that. Little kicks across the map, finding engages, finding on, going in with the right angles here. It looks like it's going to be right here at this position though. And Falling Turret getting taken relatively low in this situation. The Dragon up in less than a minute, Angel taking a beating. Yeah. Both X2W and Xiaoya. Now a teleport comes in, so there comes that chaos. It's going to be ZDZ trying to join the fight, trying to cut off X2W, and he's been left out to dry by the rest of his team. Stunned up and taken down with ease.
Really nice teleport there, found the angle, going to be able to pick that kill up nice and easily. Now 30 seconds until the Drake is available, can't quite turn around and pick that one up immediately, but EDG will buy themselves a little bit more space to push in, clear out a lot of the vision that LGD were able to grab down in this bottom side of the map and fight around this Infernal Drake, a big Drake to be able to grab. And it looked like that was a good fight for LGD originally. Like you said, Angel took a ton of damage, had a 4th shot to the face, a deadly flourish as well. But it baited XQW up, and the second teleport came through, the rest of LGD, they recognised that, like I said, left them out to dry. There was no reason for them to engage onto the fight. It was most definitely lost.
So very nice proactive play by EDG, knowing that they have to create numbers advantages at their own will, especially at this point. I find another one here on Nio. Stun barely doesn't connect, but the Magnet Storm will. Nio's taken down easily, and EDG get themselves the feats of warfare, and a nice kill in the hands of Xiaohao.
Grab themselves another pick right there, and usually you'd expect a pick coming through from the Realm Warp, didn't even need to use it, just stepping up in this situation. LGD just not playing out this early game particularly effectively. Now here comes the Realm Warp in. Sasa is going to be able to jump away, not quite going to be able to use that one as effectively as you would otherwise want, but still, the pick, the Drake, EGD, going to be happy with that.
Now they're going to go back in here onto Angel. Sasa landing that first proc of the Cyclone. The Trinity Force has been a lot of damage on the rise. Wink just not going to be able to do anything to try and stop it. And so Angel will go down. Another kill goes towards the Wukong, who is starting to look like one of the stronger players here in the game for LGD.
And you'd hope so, right, from this counter-pick Wukong. Usually we see it in the jungle, but with top lane, have a ton of gold available to you. And straight up with the Trinity Force, this monkey does damage. Let's see how much you're going to be able to do with this champion, though. Because as these team fights go, you're going to be a key part of the engage. Not particularly tanky at the moment. With that double knockup from the Cyclone, a big part of the initial team fight from LGD. This is the ward that was teleported on earlier on.
Hey guys, these control words matter.
Hey,
pick up one.
Buy them.
Once in a while.
Lots. Buy 2. Place them.
Let's not get that crazy. 2?
2.
Have you ever seen sometimes the pro supports? They'll have like one item at 45 minutes, and it's just because you look at their item purchase history, and it's just every time they go back to base, they just buy 2 controllers, and they just never have any money because that's all they do.
All of their money is gone every single time. It's very funny. To be fair though, vision is very important. I mean, we've seen it already in this game. LGD stepping up in situations where they really didn't have enough vision. The teleport onto the board as well to pick up that earlier kill onto XQW. You do need it, but right now, vision a little bit in the favour of EDG around this pit, at least the board is at the back of it. Nio.
Looking for a pick on the ZDZ. Nio already losing a little by the ZDZ flashes away, and now a teleport comes in. It's going to be the Rise. Joining the fight, but already stuck in a bit of an awkward position, but so is XQW as Wink has come in here with the Magnet Storm. But Nio finding the first kill, the Solar Flare will stun up the Realm, and Nio picks himself yet another one. It is 3-0 LGD off of a beautiful fight in the top lane.
This is what LGD's composition wants to do. Once you can get a little bit of flank going, so very strong. YCX gonna go in, Arn has to cleanse to get away from that one, at least preserves the flash, but that is easily gonna mean the top lane tower goes over to LGD, and they can turn down onto the Rift Arrows straight afterwards if they want it.
LGD playing this mid game out very nicely here, led by Sasa, I would say, but Nayo then starting to come into the party a little bit as well. 3-1-2 on the Lilia. One of his best picks so far in his young LPL career. They're not going to be able to fully finish off this Rift Herald just yet, as Xiaohao and On have also come in off of course, some of those resets.
Yeah.
So they will peel away from it, make sure that objective doesn't go down.
That's the main thing, right? You've died here, you get to go back to base, spend your gold, come back out onto the map. There's no reason to fight in a situation where you've got a lot of gold in your inventory. We just saw the Rift Maker completed there. And it's him who initiates out this fight. The initial kill doesn't happen onto CDZ, but it's everything that follows. It's this TP coming in from Sasa that just completely tears up this fight on the backside. Angel's already getting chased around, but it doesn't really matter. Not once you've got the remainder of your members involved in this fight. You just turn this one around, go down, and then they just keep pushing forwards, right? You flash forwards, hang on.
Oh, X2W. He's very low right now. Zhao trying to collapse on top of him. Angel will finish off the kill and is traded back by the Ignite of YCX to make it a 1-for-1. So mid laner for jungler overall. That is all that will be done across the map. You see LGD still have priority on this top side, so Sasa and Nayo will be able to likely pick up this Rift Herald for free.
Only give away 4 kills right there. It hasn't exactly been the best couple of games so far out of XQW. We're struggling to find any of those ultis on Yazir in the previous game. It's been dying quite a lot in this game. In fact, it's all but one of his team's deaths so far. Not ideal overall. But at the same time, the Scorpion will still do a lot of damage with that Gatling gun and still just rip through the track if he's going to be able to pull this game around. EDG a little bit on the back foot at the moment as we have a look back at what ended up happening. Just out of position a little bit. Still, it does turn around into a 1-for-1, so not the end of the world. Not ideal.
Yeah, nicely done by YCX to make sure that that Xiaohao was locked down enough and also had enough damage dealt onto him, so he was able to at least make it a trade. It does mean that right now YCX has 2 of the 7 kills. Xiaoya currently has none, but that's okay, at least for this point, as that LGD still in a pretty decent amount of roll. We have this dragon spawning up right now. LGD should be able to take priority around it, take it down. However, EDG were able to pick up first 2 Drakes, which means that there's no real threat of a soul stack early for LGD.
Now the souls are gonna come slowly here for LGD if they want to grab it. All 4 of these Cloud Drakes. To be fair, this is the sort of composition where some extra movement would be really helpful. You can imagine the speeds that Nayo will be moving at. Mid lane tower going to be forced onto right here. Xiaohao jumped.
Oh, already used a Heartbreaker, but he just still gets stunned up. Really nicely done by YCX with the first kill for LGD. Current call opened up. He engaged from Wink to try to peel away. YCX might have gone a little bit too far forward, but he'll live for so long and allow for Xiaoya to pick up a double kill. So the Jin gets on the board. LGD pick up 3 more kills while only losing their support. They get the mid lane turret and look for a tier 2.
They're looking to push onto this tier 2 in both the mid and the bot lane. There's going to be a teleport coming down, but with all 6 of the grubs, Sasa is going to melt through this one. Mid lane tier 2 does fall. Bot lane tier 2 will as well. That's a huge amount of gold going into the back pockets of LGD. They're now going to be up by about 5,000, and it really is almost entirely across the board. It's only the bottom lane right now where there isn't going to be a big advantage, and that is just okay for LGD. Which we'll have a look back at that fight, although right now, a bit of a chase going on in the bottom lane. Sasa being chased after will get caught here, will go down most likely.
Not really though, clones away, flashes away, saves that cooldown for so long.
Okay.
Be able to live there. That's a big escape here from Sasa. That no gold goes over, and LGD still get to maintain their almost 5,000 gold lead.
Yeah, that's a 300 gold shutdown right there for Sasa. If you get killed, has to flash away, so that is a big bit of the engage with the flashlight clone just gone. At the same time, not be too worried about it. Just to look back at this play, it's just Xiaohao stepping a little bit too far forward. The second he gets hit by that Zenith Blade, he is as good as dead. Yes, the Soul Blade doesn't quite land, but it still slows onto multiple members, allows a little more light to come through. And it's just a little bit too far forward. YCX a little bit too far forward, results in that death. Not the end of the world though. And something actually I wanted to mention, unless there's a fight, yep, there's a fight as soon as he jumps out, that's Sasa just dead. Well,
just gets
no
shut
flash.
down. Not even that killer instinct used for On. I'm surprised that Salsa found himself in that situation without even burning the ultimate. Already 1 for nothing. However, on half HP, Angel procs the warm-up to try to get his team away, but he gets stunned up before he can go and finish that teleportation. And so Naya will pick up the kill onto ZDZ. On also drops. It's 2 for 1 overall for LGD, and they turn their eyes towards the Ravenous Otacon.
And this is the problem EDG are running into, despite the fact that they have themselves this composition with the Rise. They're still late to a lot of these fights, not able to rotate across the map quickly enough before the rest of LGD are allowed to arrive. Ashcan now going to go over to LGD. They're up by a good chunk of gold as well. And this game feeling quite a lot like LGD are going to be able to close this one out. We'll have to see, right? We saw EDG begin to fight back in the previous game. But as of right now, we may well be getting a game number 3 in this series.
Yeah, this is the largest lead that LGD has had all series long. This looks much more like the LGD that we've seen throughout all of Group Nirvana.
Yep.
Obviously, other than just game number 1, where Naya was able to have a lot of agency on a high damage carry pick. And the rest of the team able to kind of follow up. Salsa on the counter pick Wukong, also doing a ton of damage. I'm going to credit YCX as well. Finding some really nice engages and setting up the
This is exactly what you want to be doing right here on this Leona. Getting those early couple of kills, yeah, it's not ideal because you would love them onto your Jhin. At the same time though, the fact that you're up by over 1,000 gold on a support means that he was able to hit his items a little bit faster. This Leona is now incredibly tanky at this point in the game and going to be able to play that much more aggressive and find those engages that you really need to on this champion.
And with the Otacon revives, they can play very aggressively in terms of kind of throwing away their lives if need be, if it means they can get a little bit extra gold in terms of the neutral structure. Obviously, the tier 2 turret in the top lane, a big target, as well as his inhibitor tower in the mid lane. On taking a big chunk of damage right now. And here comes the initial engage. Back and forth from Wing to try to peel away. It should be YCX, at least getting the false revive. But look at the trade back here for LGD. The Lily lower right connects. Realm Warp away from Angel to make sure On survives. But the fourth shot finds Wink. And Wink blinks and he's down. 2 for nothing already here for LGD as they get the inhibitor in the mid lane.
Can keep up the pressure right here, make sure EDG can't step out of their base, and then peel back on towards this dragon. 20 seconds until that one is going to be spawning. It will only be the second of the game right here for LGD if they're able to pick this one up. Still, they're in an incredibly strong position right now. Lilith also going to be stolen away right here by now. See if he's going to have enough time to be able to go back to base right now. This Lilia with the Riftmaker and the Leandries, and then stacks on that Dark Seal. Just does so much damage. These team fights are just being won by being outranged by the main damage threats of LGD, and then you've got Naya and Sassy jumping into the backline.
Man, isn't it nice to have Naya on a champion that I feel like he feels comfortable on?
Yes.
The Skarner pick
was bad. Let's say bad. There were a couple of those engages where he was just jumping in by himself, no hope of the rest of the team being able to follow up. Good job from him to be able to get a pick he's very comfortable on, reset his mental, and then come into this game incredibly effectively. You see right now, splits off to go pick up the Drake without the rest of his team. Now going to take a reset, so this is the point for EDG to potentially try to find a pick in a 4v5 situation.
I don't think they're going to be able to, though. They're doing a nice job grouping up together, making sure nobody can get caught out. Shock Blast only taking XQW down a couple hundred HP. Not really a threat to go for this Baron at this point, but they control all the vision around this topside river. EDG really have no idea what's going on around.
And they've got so little vision. I'd love to see a toggle to what they can see at the moment, because it's going to be a whole lot of nothing. YCX goes in.
Great screen here for ZDZ, what he's going to be seeing. And another really nice engage from YCX will find the pick. And now with the top laner BLG dead, LGD can gladly start with the Baron. We're going to look for more. YCX again. This time finds Xiaohao. He's able to round warp away. The fourth shot would have found the target. So LGD, will they go back to the Baron? It looks like the answer is yes. Now Xiao doesn't have HP, but he has the red buff in inventory. But Xiaohao is just so far away. Going to have to try to go for some sort of miracle steal.
Yeah, I mean, you've currently got super minions in your base. Now the re-engage going to come through.
Oh, Wink with a really nice Magnus Storm, but Salsa will come through the Cyclone. Initially, the first kill onto Wink. Angel now on the run, but the phase rush not going to do enough. That's just a big shutdown. Sorry, goes the way of Xiaoya. And now it's 2 more kills in the hands of LGD, and they don't even need the Baron to just push down mid and try to end this game and send us to a decider.
Yeah, they want to send us to this game number 3. It's a massive game for both of these teams. LGD with Lock getting out of Group Nirvana. EDG would lock themselves out of being knocked out. Right now,
I think this just might be it. The
It's
Nexus
over.
Tower
It's
taking
done.
a beating right now. ZZ down once again. The Nexus now exposed, and YTX leading the charge here for LGD. On the Nexus they go. Just the bot lane alive for Edward Gaming, and they're not going to be for long. LGD, with a dominating performance, will win game number 2 and force a decider against EDG.
This series so far has been completely insane. It's a 40-minute banger for game number 1. This one, much quicker. Didn't even need to finish off the Baron to be able to pick up that win, did LGD. We said it during the draft race, right? It was a bit of a mess of a composition out of EDG, and you really saw that. They weren't able to find those big engages that they really needed to, weren't able to find the picks on the side lanes either, and it just felt like a very clean game overall from LGD.
And that looked much like, again, the LGD that we were hoping to see at the start of the series. It's just not really the most traditional team composition that they really always have gone for in game number 1, and Edward Gaming were able to take advantage of that a little bit. But LGD looked much more in control this time around. I really liked the Wukong counter pick that Sasa was able to play. It really mitigated what ZDZ was able to do in that game entirely. And even though we saw some nice engages, you know, from different players like Wink here on EDG's side, it was never enough to stop what YCX was able to do on that Leona, who I think deserves the MVP, frankly, after that game. I thought he played that really well.
I think the issue EDG ran into is that, yes, the Viego does scale pretty well and gets to be a very scary champion during these big team fights, but you're up against Lilia. You have to play this early map more aggressive than they did. Bot lane could have been a really good potential lane to try to gank through, maybe even go for some dives. We didn't see that at all. We didn't really see any pressure in the top lane. Mid lane, it's a tricky matchup to try to gank onto. We saw multiple times, so the junglers did wander through there, having a little bit of a sniff, never found it. And as how you have to get your team ahead in the early stages of the game. You scale well as a whole composition, but you really weren't going to be able to win these straight-up team fights without some kind of advantage. They never found it, and they were never able to try to convert any sort of early game into a mid-game victory.
And unlike last game, where there was a little bit of back and forth and LGD were able to show some fight before EDG eventually took over, it really never felt like EDG were ever really in a position to win that one. And even in terms of like hoping for what their composition could become, it felt like LGD were always going to have their foot on the driver's pedal, in control, able to eventually take over that one, and they did with relative ease. That is definitely a good sign if you're a fan of LGD, and we're a little bit worried about what that last game entails. If you take a look at the damage charts overall, ZDZ, again, kind of just the beneficiary of having a poke champion do poke